Hey everyone, I'd like to welcome you to the Avoiding Pitfalls in the Virtual Classroom session. So motivation for this session is our current situation. With COVID-19, a lot of our students that would normally be face-to-face are not necessarily by their choice. Same note, a lot of our teachers that normally would only be teaching face-to-face are not. A lot of them have virtual classes, and it's a struggle right now. It really is. And part of my job is helping to support those teachers and students. And so I'm hoping to take some of what I've learned and use it to help you guys to improve your situations, just get better outcomes for everybody in this current environment. And you'll see I've used a lot of the game Pitfall. You'll see on the little television there. That's the game that's kind of scrolling. Pitfall is a great game. It was an Atari, an arcade game. I think it came out in the early 80s, maybe late 70s. Pretty much you run through the jungle. You have to time your jumps just right. Maybe use a swinging vine to jump over these pitfalls. You also avoid other hazards. So it's a world chock full of hazards. Everything there is out to get you. And you have to use your skill and your timing to survive, just like the virtual classroom. And that's why I threw that in there. So this is part of the Building Engineers in K-12 Classrooms Professional Development session. And normally this would be a face-to-face session. I hate that it cannot be this year. It's always such a great experience. Hopefully next year we'll get to see you guys face-to-face once again and participate in some more great activities like we've done in years past. So my name is Will Allred. I'm a digital integration facilitator, or tech facilitator, you could say, at Pinecrest High School in Southern Pines, North Carolina. I've been a tech facilitator, digital integration facilitator, for 3 years now. And before that, I was in the classroom teaching high school science for an additional 4 years. So 7 years in this education gig. Hopefully it'll stick. We'll see. Again, the focus right now is the COVID-based environment. Survival is the biggest key. It's what I've kind of observed. It's a very stressful time for everyone. And that's true for teachers and students. I'm going to focus on the teacher side today because, first of all, it's easier to get teachers to change their ways and improve for the most part. And seriously, teachers tend to respond a little better to that. And also, if we can help teachers out naturally, that will benefit all of their students greatly. So a little easier to take that approach. All right. So the first pitfall that you want to avoid, and we did not do a great job of avoiding this at my school. This is something that unfortunately happened to a lot of our high-performing, outstanding teachers. It's jumping too soon. You can see on the animation there, the little pitfall guy jumps too soon, misses the vine, jumps right into the pitfall, and he's dead. All right. What this looked like to me in the classrooms was, again, really great teachers wanting to make sure their students were engaged heavily right out of the gate. They would assign multiple submission types to their students. So, for example, in Canvas, they might have had students turn in work using video recordings, screenshots. They might have thrown in Edpuzzle, Edulastic, GoFormative, all great tools, but not what you want to be doing the first 2 weeks of school. What would happen as a result? Let me step back. Think about this. So anytime you roll out a new tool in the classroom, a new tech tool, inevitably there's going to be some troubleshooting that takes place. Now, in a face-to-face classroom environment, that's not a big deal. It's perfectly okay. You can go to the student, look at their Chromebook, sort it out, and you're good to go. If it happens to multiple students, you can pull up the problem-solving steps on your smartboard or your class television or whatever. Again, you're good to go. In this crazy virtual environment that we're in now, all of your students are probably not going to be in the same place at the same time. And so you have to find the troubleshooting steps and email them to students, which students probably are not going to read those. Alternately, you can address the inevitable bombardment of individual emails from parents and students about the tech issue one at a time. You don't want to have to do that either. So keep in mind that life's a dance. That's like from a John Michael Montgomery song, and I'm sure it came before that, but that's my first memory of that saying, about 1995 or so. It was a country song from back then. But like dancing, most things in life require practice and repetition if you're going to do them smoothly and effortlessly. That's true for boxing. See Muhammad Ali doing the rope-a-dope here, where he gets onto the ropes, but he doesn't get hit. And once his opponent gets tired, he puts a hurting on him. That didn't happen overnight. That's not something where he woke up that morning and knew how to do that. Lots of time practicing, sparring, working with trainers, etc. All right, another example is racing. All right, if you see race cars competing on a track, rest assured that those drivers have spent hours on that track. Drivers will a lot of times go and walk a track on foot just to get a good feel for the track's layout. And then when they're driving the car, they'll do things like they'll pick a single tree or a post or even a crack on the side of the track somewhere to use to mark where they need to hit the brakes before the next curve. Tons of practice and repetition go into racing like that. Aerobatics, that goes unsaid. So there's the Blue Angels flying F-18s. So much precision flying there. They practice all the time. They rack up an unbelievable amount of flight hours over the course of their careers. All right. So along the lines of boxing, racing, flying high-performance aircraft and type formations, we have online learning. Again, a great example of something that to happen smoothly and effortlessly and to work out well requires a lot of practice and repetition. So here's how we can avoid that first pitfall. You need to use that. It's painful, I know, but the first week or two, preferably the first 2 weeks, use those wisely to front load and allow everybody to get familiar with the learning management system and how they're going to find their assignments, how they're going to turn in their assignments. And by everybody, I mean students, parents, and teachers. All right, so for parents, something that we did not do as great a job as we should have last year with, getting them familiar with the learning management system. So first 2 weeks is the time when you really want to make sure all of your parents are in your students' learning management systems, either as observers or whatever their option is. Even make sure parents know that they can have the students pull up work on their device and show them what's going on. All right, again, first 2 weeks is when you want to do that. Something we did not do last semester that we're definitely going to do this semester is we're going to send papers home with our students that have bit.ly and QR codes for the parents to show them how to get these access rights as Canvas parent observers and as PowerSchool parent portal participants. All right, so again, parents are a big step. Another big thing, and this is where a lot of us struggled this semester, make sure students are familiar with the LMS. Now, guys, I know on my end, and we'll discuss this more in a second, the first 2 weeks was just a cataclysm of, it was a nightmare, the number of students we had that could not log into the learning management system at all because they didn't know the password, they were new to the school, new to the district, things just weren't working out. It was enough that, if you were a teacher after that first 2 weeks is up, you kind of realized that you didn't miss much if you spent the first 2 weeks just going over the things I'm saying here right now, because so many students had tech issues that they just fell way behind if you jumped into the curriculum the first 2 weeks. So with that in mind, use the first 2 weeks to make sure students are familiar with your LMS. Stick to 1 or 2 assignment types for that first 2 weeks. If you're using Canvas or Google Classroom, you might stick with text responses and file submissions, and maybe throw quizzes into the mix. But don't go beyond that. Don't have students record videos during that time. Try to avoid the screenshot submissions during that time. Try to avoid anything outlandish, no ed puzzles, no go formatives, and try to avoid things that require additional logins as well. One login, in my experience, the first 2 weeks is enough to keep up with. Finally, this is the time when you want to go through and make sure everybody's intimately familiar with when and where work will be posted. The where is an important thing that, again, we'll discuss that a little more later. But LMS basics is the key. Now, if you can do that, you will be able to successfully time your jump and miss that first pitfall. Wait for it, and jump and right into the log, but the log doesn't kill you, so that's okay. All right. Here's an example of what we're going to send out next semester. And if you go to the bit.ly right here at the first bullet point, so bit.ly/Allred sample 1, that will bring up a copy of this that you can make your own. So again, this just has directions for accessing PowerSchool Parent Portal and also directions for joining Canvas as a parent observer. So there will be, in those bit.lys and the QR codes that are right there, those are blank, so you can make those your own. But this should really help us significantly next semester. I wish we'd put those out this year. All right. Pitfall number 2. It's another common issue, unfortunately. So this one, here's trouble. I call that because it's troubleshooting. All right, so we noticed at the start of the year this year, like I already mentioned, so many students had troubles with PowerSchool, Canvas passwords. They had trouble logging in and accessing basic assignments. They had basic issues with their Chromebook that 90% of them were solved by clearing cache and clearing cookies. Web filter access issues, just a lot of little stuff that, is not a big deal, but it adds up really quickly whenever a big chunk of the student body experiences it. Students had Chromebook issues in general. Most of these issues have really simple solutions. And hey, that's what the tech support staff's here to help with, right? Unfortunately, there's not much of the tech support staff to go around. And so what ended up happening the first 2 weeks, really the first 3 weeks, my day would go something like this. I would come into the office about 7:45, 8 o'clock. Phone would start ringing right out of the gate. It may be a teacher, it may be a parent, it may be an administrator. Somebody could not access their work, something could not get posted correctly. Meanwhile, smart boards are dying, computers are messing up, Chromebooks are messed up. My email is looking something like this. Next thing you know, it's 6:30 in the afternoon. It is past time to go home. Dinner's on the table, and I'm still 45 minutes away. Not ideal by any means. The big problem with that is, and I'm going to go back here for just a second, the big issue is if you're a student that's unable to log into PowerSchool because your password's not working, normally something Mr. Allred could deal with in, 30 or 45 minutes. Well, suddenly there's so many of those issues going around that I might not get to it for 3 or 4 days. And as a result, the student ends up 3 or 4 days behind, which is terrible, but there's only so much you can do. I mean, it was complete chaos that first little bit. And unfortunately, it did not have to be. And we're going to try to get on top of that next semester, next school year. Here's how. So for each group, so for parents and students and for teachers, we're going to provide a document that has information they need to go through basic troubleshooting steps. Now, I understand that some parents and students, and even some teachers are not going to even reference that document, and that's okay. But we're going to put that out there for them. And in fact, we did that this semester, and that helped me substantially. About the end of the second week or so, I got a document pushed out to teachers, and I got some stuff pushed out to students that significantly reduced my workload in terms of these troubleshooting things. And I'll share this with you guys in just a moment. But again, we're going to provide a document to each group with links to very specific steps to solve these common troubleshooting problems. These will be live documents. So this is not going to be a sheet of paper. Now, if teachers or parents or students want to print these and keep a copy of it, more power to them. But these are going to be something like a Google document that is live. And so as new issues pop up over the course of the school year, you can add to it. A third bullet point there, stick with the plan. This is really for the tech support people. So if you've got a document that shows students how to clear the cache and cookies on their Chromebook, you have a teacher that calls you with a student can't access their work because they need to clear the cache and cookies on their Chromebook. Your first instinct is going to be to run to that classroom and grab the student's Chromebook and clear the cache and cookies. Don't do that. Show the teacher how to do it. Walk them through the process. Make sure they know how to access the support document that shows them how to do it. Then you can be there while they do it, but let the teacher do it. All right, teachers are great problem solvers. They may not always realize it, but they are. They love learning new things. And here's what will happen. You'll let that teacher figure it out. You'll guide them along, but they'll figure it out. They'll know how to do it next time. Not only will they be able to help themselves, but they'll be able to help the teacher next door. And again, if you're a support staff person, your workload gets reduced a bit. For the student, which is the end user in that case, your time needed for support gets cut drastically because now your teacher can just help you with it and you're good to go. Again, I'm not bitter about having to do all that work at all. I'm not trying to add to the teacher's workload. My main interest is making sure that students get their problems resolved as quickly as possible. And if the teacher can fix it, that's it. That's easy peasy. Finally, you do need to make sure you have a clear support plan. And by that, I mean teachers and students and parents and all involved need to know who to call if an issue pops up that's not addressed on the common support document that you provide for them. So that needs to be a part of it, kind of a who do you call option there. All right, so here's some examples of helpful materials. Now, these are blank copies of things that I'm using. So there's a published sample. If you go to that first bit.ly, you can see what I've done is I made a Google Slides document and I published it to the internet. And I share that link out to the teachers. And so whenever they pull it up, it's like it pulls up the Google Slides document in presentation mode automatically within a window. And it's a nice, neat, clean way to go about that. And it's super easy to update. So highly recommend that. The second bit.ly there, so bit.ly/Allred sample 3, that is a copy of the document itself that you can make your own if you would like to. And finally, for supporting students and parents this year, my fellow diffs and other support staff built a really nice website that covers a lot of the common issues that they come across. So feel free to check that out. Again, a lot of really good stuff there. And here's an example. This is the slideshow. This is like the start page for the staff support FAQs. So they would open up the published website and it looks like this, and each one of those buttons they click on it takes them to a specific slide. All right. Pitfall number 3, virtual room of doom. And what I mean by this is teachers create overly complicated virtual classrooms. They have too much going on there. Like in the animation you see now, in addition to the scorpion and the hole, there's a rattlesnake, and the guy doesn't know what to do, and he just jumps right on the snake. All right, so again, many of our well-meaning, really great teachers made virtual classrooms that were just too much. They were too elaborate, and that caused confusion and problems for our students. So these were classrooms that are virtual classrooms that look great, but in practice, they were not so great. So here's an example of a virtual classroom. And this is one that I made because I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. But you can see there's some visual appeal there. You'll also see there are a lot of links. So you have the buttons down there for contact the teacher and assignments and quizzes and helpful videos in unit 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then you have a summary of what's going on that week below that. Meanwhile, over on the left-hand side, you have another means of attaching or of accessing assignments, and then there's pages and there's files and modules and all sorts of stuff. And so what happens then is you tell students to do a specific assignment. They may click the assignments button and there's a whole list of all the assignments for the semester and they're not sure where to find it. And they're not going to look too hard sometimes. You might tell them to do an assignment in Unit 1, and they click on Unit 1, and maybe they'll find it, maybe they will not. Maybe they'll go to modules on the left because they know they can find Unit 1 there, but it causes problems. And parents will encounter those same issues. So this is a bad virtual classroom arrangement. All right. Again, it causes uncertainty in the students and parents, and that's when you get those dreaded emails. So to avoid that, you need to have a well-made virtual classroom. It's going to have good visual appeal. You want to have that. That's important. You also want to take a minimalist approach. So minimize pathways, avoid distractions wherever possible, link directly to assignments where possible, and consider, this is a little bit controversial, but I'm in favor of this for sure. Consider a standardized layout within your school. And that doesn't mean curriculum layout. That doesn't mean content. That just means that for each virtual classroom in the school, the assignments are going to be in the same spot, accessed the same way. And so by the end of the first week, you will not have any of those issues where students are not able to find work and parents aren't sure where work is. Well, you'll probably have a few, but not nearly as many as we had this semester. Granted, that would cost a little bit of autonomy to teachers, but to me, the trade-off is worth it for sure. And so that's just something to consider. All right, and for an example of that framework, you might look at something like this right here. So here's a pretty well-designed virtual course. You'll see that down here on the bottom, we have direct links to all of the week's activities. So this is a Canvas course. It's just got a table down there with a column for each day of the week. Under each of those days is a summary of what's happening that day, and then direct links to each one of those things. So a student clicks on solubility diagram for Monday, it opens up that actual activity. For accessing the previous week's work, have a couple of options. You can expand the table so it has multiple rows so you can access previous weeks that way. Another option is you can have students go to modules. Ideally, your modules would be broken down by week, so you would have a single module for each week of the semester. And so students could click on modules to see work from past weeks. So this covers everything. It's super simple and straightforward, to the point, much better layout. All right, pitfall number 4 is communications breakdown. And that's a common problem this year for sure. Hard to communicate with students when they're virtual. Couple of things that we know for sure. Students do not read emails. Maybe 3 of them do, but that's about it. Students do not consistently participate in virtual meetings, whether they're mandatory or not. We have a lot of issues with students not participating in those like they should. So pretty common theme here, that little picture, daily class meeting, no one is here. Finally, many students do not do their schoolwork during traditional school hours. So many things are getting turned in between the hours of 2 and 4 in the morning is crazy, and I really worry what it's going to look like for those students whenever regular face-to-face classes start back again, and they will one day. All this makes it difficult to communicate with students on a regular basis. So workarounds for that, kind of limited, but there are some things that you can do. Number 1, use multiple communication pathways with students. So in other words, if you need to send something out to all your students, use the learning management system to make an announcement, or even use that to message the individual student. All right, they're not checking their emails regularly, but they are checking their messages within Canvas pretty regularly. So that's a good way to go about contacting them. Remember, their parents are a pretty good way to get a hold of a student too. So if you try to get a hold of one and you can't, let mom or dad know. All right. Remind, if you're not using Remind, you need to. Remind is an outstanding tool. All right, so the students that I needed to contact regularly are, like, for example, my robotics team students. If I send an email out to the 20 or so students I have right now, I might get 1 or 2 responses. If I send out a remind, everybody reads it. Remind is awesome. It's just remind.com. You can get it set up quickly and easily. Highly recommend it. With regards to your meetings, keep those short and sweet. Remember, students are getting a lot of screen time right now, a lot of screen time. So don't add to it unless it's absolutely necessary. And also, don't use your meetings for taking notes. Don't use your meetings for lecture. All right, meetings those should be used for review. That gives your students an opportunity to socialize, talk with one another, talk with you, build relationships, which is something they don't get to do very much of right now. So emphasize interactions. If you need students to do lecture and take notes, record a video and let them do that on their own time, some other time. Whenever you get all your students together at once, let them socialize, right? You'll have more successful meetings that way. Finally, be flexible with your meeting times as well. Understand students have a ton going on right now, especially at the high school level. Students are working, whether they should be or not. Students are taking care of younger siblings, and they can't help that right now. Mom and dad have to go to work. If there's an elementary school sibling, they're taking care of that sibling. They may even be helping that sibling out with schoolwork. So be understanding of that. Provide as many meeting times throughout the day and throughout the week as possible, and just encourage students to attend one of those. All right. Pitfall number 5, wrong tool for the job. So this is another one that I've been seeing a lot of. Teachers, again, really great teachers have built really outstanding courses over years of face-to-face instruction. Unfortunately, the activities they use and develop for that do not always translate well to the virtual classroom. And so, for example, we need to consider whenever we have activities that we've used face-to-face, we want to bring them online, we need to think about this. All right, first of all, students are going to have access to Google. They're going to cheat. Whether you like it or not, they're going to cheat. Unless you are able to get your students to where they are doing their work in front of a camera and you're able to watch them while they do it, they're going to look stuff up on Google, and that's just the way it is. So you're going to have to live with that. Time is precious for you and your students. So you need to think about, before you put an assignment out, your student's going to do it. You're going to grade it and return it to them. Is it worth your time? And if not, how can you change it to make it worth your time and their time? All right. Finally, frequent high quality feedback is the single most important thing you can give your students right now. All right. High quality feedback is the key for students that are doing their work. They're going to thrive on that. So you need to focus your assignments on the ability to do that. So whenever you give your students work, here's what it needs to have. It needs to be an emphasis on open answer and show your work activities. Will they still cheat on that? Heck yes. But unlike a multiple choice question, we can generally determine that pretty quickly. For example, if your 9th grade student is all of a sudden writing on a graduate school level, you know that you can copy whatever they're writing or whatever they submitted, paste it in a Google search of your own and see exactly where they robbed it from. And then you can act appropriately from there. So open answer makes that a lot easier. In addition, Google Classroom, Moodle, and now Canvas all have options to catch plagiarism and stop it. So it kind of does that automatically for you, which is great. All right. Obviously, you get enhanced feedback potential. What I mean by that is open answer, you can mark it up more effectively, get a better idea of what the student knows, and give the student a better opportunity to revise their work. All right. Keep your daily assignments short and sweet. And I know that a lot of teachers are not crazy about this, but trust me, this is what's working right now. All right. If you give your students an hour and a half of work each day, those that do it are going to be miserable, and a lot of them are just not going to do it. All right. If you can give them 4 or 5 open choice or open answer questions every day or two, that work's going to be done. You're going to get an idea of what they know. You're going to get feedback to them, and that's better. And again, that's daily assignments. All right. Now, if you want to have a more involved project assignment that they do over the course of a week or two, that's different. If you want to have something kind of a larger scale project that's due every Friday or every other Friday or something, that's different. Your daily assignments, though, short, sweet, and to the point. Yeah, remember with those assignments, you have an expected daily amount of class time, and those assignments can be part of that. So you don't need to meet with your students for 45 minutes each day if they can spend some of that time doing a daily work assignment. All right, avoid busy work. Students can sniff that out really well. If you're giving them busy work that might or might not be graded, avoid it. Their time is precious. Your time is precious. Don't give them for example, so this is something that would not be ideal for the virtual setting right now. When I was an earth science teacher, I had a lot of tests and exams that had 40, 50 multiple choice questions. Don't give those. Um, just not a good fit for the virtual classroom at all. And remember, finally, assignments should be arranged so that students can complete them easily in the time allotted. You grade and return them in a timely manner. Again, time is everything right now. All right, the more time that you can save for yourself and your students, the better off everyone will be. All right, pitfall number 6. This is the greatest pitfall of all. So this is one that it pains me to even talk about it. I've had so many teachers that have fallen victim to this thing. It is the biggest, baddest, deepest, and deadliest for certain. This thing is scary, and it causes problems for everybody from the students to the parents all the way up to the administrators and probably beyond. All right. So this is something that, unfortunately, too, is super hard to avoid. It's based on your personality. You're either going to run into it or you're not. Once you do face it, and again, it's not based on your personality, it's either you are or you're not going to. And if you do face it, the sooner you recognize it and take action, the better. Otherwise, it's just going to be a disaster. The greatest pitfall: unrealistic expectations. And holy smokes, has that been a huge problem for us this year. All right, so some examples of unrealistic expectations. Number 1, I can prevent students from cheating. No, you can't. All right, they're at home, probably alone, and often with multiple devices. If they're not alone, there's a pretty good chance they're with their classmates. They're going to look up answers. It is what it is. Use open answer. Do the very best that you can. That's all we can expect from you. Number 2, students are going to turn their work in on time no matter what. And for that matter, they're going to turn it in the way I tell them to turn it in no matter what. No. All right. So again, these students have a lot going on at home. Their home environment might be rough. Home internet's not always going to be reliable. No adults to push them while they're at home. Ease up on them a little bit. All right. It's a hard time for everyone right now. Cut the students a little bit of slack and cut yourself some slack in accepting work late. If a student has trouble turning something in Canvas, but they email it to you, accept it. There's no reason not to accept that. It's fine. They did the work. They got it to you. Don't cause difficulty where it's not needed. Another one, if I work hard, learning outcomes can be as good as in a normal year. No, they cannot. Think about a normal year. All right. Imagine this. Imagine you give students an assignment, then you go to your desk, and you tell the students, all right, everybody, make sure this is done before the end of class today. And you proceed to sit at your desk for the entirety of the remainder of the class period. How much work's going to be done? If you're saying to yourself, not very much, then your experience aligns with mine. And now think about the fact that these students are home alone with nobody to push them, no teacher to push them along, have them do what they need to do. It's a wonder anything is done. Be mindful of that. These are weird times right now. It's not an ideal situation. Do the best that you can. Don't drive yourself crazy. This pitfall, it kills me because a lot of times as teachers that are great, have always held their students to high standards, They get disheartened and stressed. Students end up with hours of work. Some of the students try to do all the work that gets pushed to them by these teachers. They get bogged down by that. They're working through the weekends trying to get stuff done. Parents try to help. Sometimes they're not able to. And again, it's just a stressor for everyone. Eventually, the tech support staff get pulled in these cases when tech issues disrupt ability for students to turn in work. I've had a lot of those instances this year. And the teacher penalizes a grade. Again, that's just a rough situation all around. So what can we do to avoid this? If this is you, if you're one of these teachers that, again, it's a valuable asset to have, you have super high expectations of your students. But if that's you, this is a very, 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 very tough time right now. All right. You just have to take a breath and go with the flow and accept that things are going to be turned in late. Things are going to be turned in weird ways. It is what it is. If you know a teacher that's going through that, emphasize the importance of flexibility and accepting work that maybe is turned in a little bit late, or again, with a different format. Remind the teachers that students are facing as tough a time as we are right now, if not tougher, and remind them of how other successful teachers are helping students to get through this. Outcomes are our priority here. So we don't want to push students so hard that they give up. We don't want to make this time any tougher than it has to be for them. This is really the impact on students is the biggest heartbreaker of all right now. So we don't want to add to that. Remember, things will get better. As you can see from this presentation, the online part will get better. We're improving that all the time. Eventually, face-to-face learning will resume, and I'm afraid there will be a learning curve when that starts back, but it will come back eventually. In the meantime, hang in there. Keep your chin up. Be flexible. Be happy. Do the best that you can. That's all I've got. Thank you for your time. Please go to the bit.ly that you see right there, bit.ly/K12 ENG-S 26 and complete the survey. I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed this session.